And we are recording on Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024 at 8:32 a.m. Eastern Time with Dr. Dale Comstock. And now I can finally be the the capitalist whore I've so wanted to be forever. Guys, go in the description, Fox and Sons Coffee, promo code Tommy, or you can go get, because this is what we're going to talk about. We are in World War III. Go get some Heaven's Harvest freeze dried food. We're eventually going to die, and you'll probably die in a nuclear holocaust, but you might as well have some like freeze dried teriyaki something. I don't know. And go in the description. Wellness company. You can also use promo code Tommy. Get some vitamins and supplements. Prismatic Energy home battery system. Promo code Tommy. So, when you're off grid for, I don't know, you've been banned from the internet for posting an anti-tranny meme. I don't know, but Fox and Sons Coffee, Heaven's Harvest, Prismatic Energy, The Wellness Company, all of that shit in the description. Dr. Dale Comstock's been on here a trillion times before. You can go into the description, find links to his book, his Instagram, his website, his coaching, his book, American Badass, is fucking fantastic. Please go grab it. Dale was on here, episode 50. He's one of the originals. And yeah, I mean, CIA assassin, Delta Force, Special Forces, knocks motherfuckers out, trains killer dogs, has an awesome mustache, and you still manage to weave your way into, well, it just was Christmas was last week. You still managed to, we were on the back roads. My dad was driving me and my older brother, and somehow or another, it ends up with like, what's new with Dale? Somehow or another, you weave into every conversation. I mean, I do my video game streams, and somehow or another, there's always a joke with like, somehow you get in there. You are the real life GI Joe. You are the one and only Dr. Dale Comstock. But Dale, let's get into what we were just saying beforehand. We're in a deliberate war right now. They're flooding the border with what, like 700,000 illegal immigrants a month.
Oh yeah, man. So lots going on. So by the way, for everybody that's out there listening and watching, I'm in Bali, Indonesia right now. It's my home here. I have a business here, and I just came in from Florida. I have a home there as well. I was in Panama City Beach for Christmas. Went there to go see my daughter, and then just a couple of weeks, and then came back here to Bali. Spent New Year's with my company, my wife and our guys doing a security for a local beach bar. They have these big New Year's Eve events, usually bringing in about 10,000, literally 10,000 chicks in thong bikinis, dudes on steroids and fucking alcohol, man. So you can imagine what that turns into, or could turn into, right?
Fucking
So
clusterfuck.
yeah, they have to amp up the security to manage all that. But it actually, honestly, it hasn't been too bad lately. Most people come in there and behave themselves. You always get a bunch of drunkards though, but they have to be
Yeah.
tossed out. Other than
Yeah.
that, nothing serious has ever happened there in the 6 years that we've been supporting the event. So anyways, yeah, I just got here literally the night before New Year's Eve. I'm looking at my wife, right? And the night before New Year's Eve, I showed up. Actually, I was in the Philippines, so I stopped off in the Philippines and then came here. Went right to work, and I've been literally laying in bed for the last 3 days. I had a cold. Just overdoing it, man. Just between 34 hours of air travel to get here,
Jesus.
and just ripping and running and pulling security all day. Like I think we started at 10 o'clock in the morning to about 2 a.m. the next morning after New Year's Eve. So
Well, I didn't have, I'm not, I always say this, am I going to compare myself to Dale? Yes, I am. I didn't have a cool travel story, but I did eat a chicken salad sub and from a gas station. And so, so I spent New Year's Eve, man. Literally, I was doing a video game stream, and somebody was like, "Do you have like a spit towel?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm a little nauseous." And then finally, over the course of like 10 seconds, I was like, "Show's over," and I just turned it off. And somebody texted me like, "Are you okay, dude?" I ran to the fucking bathroom, just projectile vomiting. So that was my New Year's. But yeah, dude, fuck that. And actually the guy coming on after is he's out staking out and he sent me a picture of the Chinese immigration camp on the southern border. But I think
yeah.
at
Yeah, so if you want, so going back to that conversation earlier, you said we are in a war, man. Look, we've been saying this for a couple of years now. You and I have been
uh
on podcasts. I've said it before, we're already at war. We've been at war
yeah,
for it's just because it's not. It hasn't gone kinetic and ballistic yet, although it
It's
hasn't to
starting to.
some places it has already has been. But it's what is it? It's fifth generation warfare at this point now. It's mostly psychological operations, information operations. It's a different type of warfare, but every bit as effective and potentially lethal. Actually, it's very lethal because you know I would put COVID as nothing more than a bioweapon. Okay, it was a bioweapon. Who put it out there? Well, we can say the Chinese did. Honestly, I think the Americans did
I
it.
think we did it.
Yeah, and so we had a hand in that, and the Chinese did as well. But at the end of the day, there was a purpose behind it, and it is look. How many people have died now from the virus and or the vaccines, okay, and or other reasons, i.e., here in Indonesia for a while, I remember literally there was videos being posted of entire families hanging themselves from the rafters and because they didn't want to starve to death because they
Yeah.
couldn't go out and work because they were confined to their homes. And so here, like in Indonesia, for example, I think the average something like 40 to 50% of the population lives off of day wages. I mean, that's the money they make that day. They go out and sell
Yeah.
biscuits, food, and park cars on the street. Whatever they make is what they feed their families on. Well, if they're not allowed to go out and work or
Yeah.
leave their home or, social, the whole social distancing bullshit, they're like, what are we faced with? We're faced with starvation. It's not like we got a bank account like everybody else. They don't. And so when you think about the collateral effect of all that and the casualties. We're in this next war. We're in World War III,
Yeah.
and it looks different from World War II and World War I, but it's every bit as deadly. Okay, if you want to really add up the casualties, from COVID alone and the vaccine and the collateral effects a lot of people have lost their lives and lost their livelihoods. We were close to losing our livelihood here in Indonesia, right? We lost 90% of our business, 90% right off. I mean, in 3 months, we were like, holy shit, we've lost a lot. I lost probably the equivalent of about almost $900,000 worth of canines. From our security company, we lost over 55. I had to relieve 55 employees. That means 55 families didn't get
Mm-hmm.
paycheck eat off, right? And I couldn't sustain it. I've got a family to feed too, and I had to try to sustain at least the last. We still had 10 handlers left over, and of the 45 canines we had 7 left. Okay, so there's a lot of expenses, but anyways, the long and short of it is, we're in war. We have been. None of this is coincidental. This whole thing with the border crossing. Oh my God, what's going on? Look, these people are lying when they're saying that, first of all, these people are not coming across the border because they're running from something dangerous. Okay, they're running because they know they're going to get a free ride, man. This is golden meal ticket here, man. You're going to get, you know, transportation, money, cell phones, medical, and you're going to get to go wherever. And maybe in 5 years, you've got a court date that most people won't show up to, anyways, right? And so, this earlier we were talking about my wife, a year and a half ago, getting deported. My wife has been in the country legally on a 5-year unlimited entry visa because we're married. We're married in America, and she gets kicked out of the country for overstaying a visa, which has it's a 5-year unlimited entry visa, and somehow we overstayed it by more than 6 months. Well, one of the reasons was because, oh yeah, she got hit by a sheriff's deputy car doing 90 miles an hour one night. They were doing 90 miles an hour. She was in a parked car when they hit her head on. Okay, and the second thing that happened, she was diagnosed with cancer, right? So there was other extenuating circumstances, but none of we had no reason to overstay the visa for any other reason. We didn't, right? We've been going in and out. We got a company here. We have a life here in Bali. And so it's not like she was trying to get over and sneak in, but she literally got kicked out of the country on arrival a year and a half ago in LAX. You remember that story, but
Mm-hmm.
your question was, well, the good news is that she might be getting her green card soon, hopefully. Which, by the way, we applied for that over 2 years ago. It was supposed to take 4 to 7 months, and as my sources in DHS and CBP, I have actually coaching clients in those organizations that have actually told me that, yeah, we have been moved to the back of the line, and all these illegals, illegal aliens, I'm going to call them just what they are, because they're criminals. You're a
Mm-hmm.
criminal. All right. When you come to our country illegally, you're a criminal. Okay. Let's just be honest about it. You're a criminal. These criminals have got moved to the front of the line to get their visas and their green cards first. Okay. This is all deliberate. This is what? Who votes for the Democratic Party? These people are going to vote for it because they get free stuff. Okay. While people like my wife and I, who actually pay, to get the green cards and all the things that we need to be so she can become an American citizen, we get pushed to the back of the line. It basically they flipped us to the bird. This is our government at work for us. I have no problem talking about the U.S. government. They're no work better than any third world government. Absolutely, and I think there's actually third world governments that are better than the American government. Period, and more honest. Okay. Anyways, so with all that said, that's kind of my status here. Right now with my wife. And honestly, I told Marco Rubio's office because I was trying to get him to help me, and they were very limited of what they could do. Supposedly, I made 3 inquiries to DHS and State Department. Hey, why did you kick my wife out? Why did you falsify her documents? We talked about that, right? They falsified all her documents on a questionnaire, turned all her no answers to yes answers, right? Making her seem guilty, packaged it, sealed it up. And then didn't give her a copy until they closed the doors on the airplane. Literally closed the doors on the airplane. The flight attendant handed her a copy of her questionnaire. And when she opened it, she's like, "These aren't my answers. Those are their answers," right? So this is the kind of corrupt bullshit our government does. All right. I got no confidence, no faith in my government, period. Okay. Actually, it's not even my government. I don't know who these people are. They're the overlords, but they're certainly not our government. They're not working for anybody but for themselves, and for the dumb masses that will support them. Um, and so, anyways, I told Marco Rubio's office after the third letter, and they kept coming back with bullshit. You know, I mean, it was so canned. I was just so frustrated that they would actually lie. I got the documents. They actually lied on the documents. Okay. And I can prove otherwise because what they don't know is I've got insiders that fed me information off the computer systems, right? So I know they were lying to me. I saw
Yeah.
the real truth compared to the letters sent me. It's bullshit,
Yeah.
right? I've got the evidence to support that. And yeah, I'm coming for you, U.S. government. I am coming. I'm gonna be filing a lawsuit, and I'm gonna be holding a lot of people accountable for the crap they did. Where that goes, who knows? Probably nowhere because nobody in the U.S. government's held accountable unless you're a conservative. Outside of that, it's like, fuck, man, it's prison rules. Do what you want.
Yeah.
And so here we are. But so I told Marco Rubio's office, I said, you know what? You guys kiss my ass. All of you kiss my ass. I said, I'm about ready to denounce my U.S. Citizenship, become an Indonesian citizen, and fuck you guys, and fuck you and all of you guys over there, because I'm sick of it, the way you treat American citizens. Indonesians don't treat their people like that. They don't treat them like that. Man, let me tell you, you try coming to Indonesia and overstaying your visa, see how that works out for you. It's not going to work out good for you all. And let me tell you something else. You put your hand on one Indonesian, even if it's self-defense, dude, if they don't see you on the first thing home smoking at home, you'll probably be swimming in the bottom of the ocean with a cinder
Yeah.
block wrapped around your freaking leg. You don't mess around with people here. It's not just Indonesia either. I don't give a shit where you go. The only country that allows the crap that goes on that goes on in our country is America, and nobody else tolerates this kind of crap, But here we are, America's done, man. We're literally circling toilet bowl. I talked to Carlo. You remember Carlo? Carlo, and he's talking about, we got the next election. I said, there's not going to be a next election. I don't believe there's going to be a next election. There's not going to be one. And Donald Trump, they will do everything to make sure he's not the president. If that means, even if they have to kill him, they won't allow it. And and then what's going to happen is there's probably be a civil war and a revolution. It'll probably start with a civil war and then roll right into a revolution, or it might be a revolution that ends up in a civil war. But prepare yourself, Americans. The war is coming. It's coming. It's been coming for a long time, but we're way beyond the breaking point. And they're going to push that envelope because they can't afford to have Trump in office because it disrupts the entire the global reset and all the bullshit that they're lining up for us. Um, so they're not gonna allow it. And Carlos couldn't believe that. He's like, I hope you're not true, but I don't think I said you watch. Write it down. It's not gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen. And I tell you what will happen is there will be a war, and a lot of people will be held to account. A lot of people. All these politicians up there that think they're, nothing's going to happen to them. All these rich assholes that run around here in Hollywood and everybody. Yeah, you know what? Nobody, nobody's immune. In fact, I believe it'll be a global conflict. And I think around the world, you're going to see people just rise up against all their governments and just say enough is enough of the bullshit. You know.
Joe Do
Um,
Joe Dolio always said that's his line. Said World War III will be a global series of civil wars.
Yeah, exactly. I'm agree completely with him, man.
Yeah.
I completely agree with him on that one. Let me tell you something. Every conspiracy that we talked about has come true, right? They keep
Yeah.
coming. You
Didn't they
know, you know.
just release the Epstein logs like yesterday or like the day
Yeah,
before? Like literally
yeah,
the last 36 hours? Yeah, no,
yeah.
yeah, no, no,
I,
it's
I
true.
haven't seen anybody on. Have you seen it? Have you seen the log? Who's on it? Have they
Oh
talked
yeah.
about it?
Oh yeah, no. Bill Clinton 36 times or 56 times.
Oh yeah. See, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
he's called John Doe 36 or something. And I think there's like confirming documents that, that Epstein's Mossad, which everyone knew. But yeah, no, the conspiracy theory is real. It's a game of musical chairs, and both sides are looking at each other, and it's just speeding up faster and faster and faster. And it's
yeah.
horrifying, right? It's horrifying. I'm 33 and I'm like, God damn it. Like, I had a good 33 years, but it seems to be accelerating. There really doesn't seem to be any way to stop it. It's, you know,
Well, now
pray.
there's
I don't know.
veterans that came out with basically they're going to go after, you know, those individuals in DOD that uh, have basically forced vaccines on people, kick people out for not taking the vaccines. There's going to be consequences to that. Everybody thinks, well, I'll just get out of here while I can. There will be consequences. There, at the end of the day, all these people that are making these decisions or influencing the world in a negative way. There will be consequences. The World Economic Forum, Klaus, nobody's look, dude. You can have all the security you want, but when the masses rise up, you're done. You're done. You know.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
uh,
French Revolution, man. I mean,
yeah.
I remember learning about that. And it's just, yeah, no one I mean, to a fault, no one's immune. Innocent people aren't immune. Innocent people got fucking pulled out and had their heads chopped off, right? The Great Terror, the Reign of Terror. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, it'll. Oh, it's different now. No, it's not. No, it's
Well,
not.
the whole world is just a big mess, man. So let me segue into another
Sure.
area to kind of highlight what I mean by that, So the problem with a lot of Americans is they've never left the country, right? And look, going to Cancun, I don't consider that leaving the country. They've never been abroad. Okay, I went to France. Okay, that's not the same. Try travel the whole world. Now I'm actually up to 101 countries that I've either traveled to, worked in, or visited. 101 countries, man. I've been in the communist countries, I've been all around the world, and I've got a pretty good idea what the rest of the world is like, what they think of us. Some people like us, some people don't. The ones that like us, they remember how we used to be. They just can't get their head around how we are now. And some of them are going, what the hell is going on in your country? What do you mean you're changing, cutting little dicks off of kids? And they're like, what is going on over there? Right. And they actually don't want no part of it. They actually will not have, they don't want no part of this bullshit. But anyways, so like I said, most Americans haven't left the country. Some haven't left the border of their own states, have no idea what the rest of the world is like and just how dangerous it is. And when you think America is a bad place, I would argue that right now it is a bad place. I really do think it's a bad place. I mean, look, when I come home, I don't go anywhere without a firearm on me. I mean, I'm just not going to take that chance. I'm carrying a firearm with me, if not a couple firearms and my Malinois. I'm always prepared, especially if I have my family. Look, I worked in San Francisco last year. We talked about that, saw the craziness that was going on there. Um, America is a very rogue and feral country, man. It's very dangerous, and it's gotten that way in the last few years. And but outside of that, when you talk about freedom, our Constitution gave us freedom, like real freedom that other people, other countries don't enjoy. We've got, for example, First Amendment rights, the right to free speech. Although they're trying to take it from us,
Mhm.
have the right to say what you want, express your thoughts without consequences. Wow. Try that in some of these try that here in Indonesia. Try that, in China. Try that. Hell, try that in Australia. Try that in a lot of places. They're not going to tolerate that shit. Um, Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, it's not about, talked about stuff. It ain't about hunting. It's really not even about self-defense. It's about protecting our country and our freedom from tyranny. That's the reason it's there. Um, there's plenty of countries now that wish they were armed, because they're going, now what are we going to do?
Mhm.
How do we push back, right? Um, but with all that said, we still live, I'm not gonna say we live in the greatest country in the world. We can still I hope we can still recover it and bring it back to where it was. Um, it's not as racist as everyone would like it to be. I mean, let me tell you something. You try to travel around here in Asia and be a black guy, see how that
Yeah.
works out for
Try to
you,
go to
right? And
China.
sure, yeah. And look, I've seen it. Okay. Hell, you travel around here being a white guy. Look, I've been discriminated against for being white. I had a guy not want to pick me up in a taxi cab in the Philippines. You know, I had a guy flag it down for me, and he's like, who wants to get in? This guy right here goes, no, I don't pick up white guys, Americans. And he drove off, and I'm like, fuck, okay, you
Jeez.
know. Um, Look, man, it's not just Americans, man, and but anyway, at the end of the day, there's some really great bizarre stuff. I remember when my wife and I lived in Hong Kong. Um, we would walk down the street. You met, sorry, and
Hmm.
she's not tall. She's pretty small, petite, very lean. And cops would literally pull her to the side into the alley and make her piss in the cup and give her urinalysis right there, and then just literally go through her purse. They had no probable cause other than they looked at her and go, she must be on meth or something because she's small and lean, And they pull. I mean, imagine that happened in our country. That shit doesn't happen in our country. Forces want to do a urinalysis on the spot, huh?
Mm.
But I can go on and on with stuff like that. But you know, another thing that's I've been working on, I've been doing lately quite a bit actually. Speaking of, these, I don't know what you want to call it, these professions that are out there that, some people can't even believe they exist. But I've been doing a lot of work lately where I call it recovery, rescue, and repatriation, right? So sometimes I do a recovery operation where I'll get a phone call from somebody who goes, hey, for example, I had a guy call me, goes, hey, my daughter's in trouble. She's in Guatemala. She's 17 years old. You know, do you know anybody in Guatemala that can get her to the airport? I go, no. Even if I did, I wouldn't recommend it because once they find out who she is or who you are and how much money you have, she ain't making it to the airport. She's
Yeah.
gonna make it. She's gonna make it somewhere else until you pay a lot of money, and you might get her back in one
Yeah.
piece. I said, no, I said, I don't know anybody. He goes, I'm willing to pay a lot of money. I said, look, I'll go do it. And I did. Within 72 hours, I went and recovered her, brought her back, delivered her mom and dad to Singapore. Um, I had a guy just call me about 4 months ago. Several guys, actually different guys, but this particular guy, I'm not going to name the country. We talked about this in the beginning because I may need to go back and I don't want to be on their watch list. Hell, I don't even want to be on their arrest list, but anyways, he's like, hey, look, man. He goes, I've been following you, blah blah blah. Can you help me out? He goes, I'm in the country and I can't get out. They took they didn't take his passport. They flagged it,
Mm.
so he couldn't travel. Right. And by the way, this happens quite a bit. Happens in the Middle East. Can happen in a lot of countries. And for example, if you owe any money, a speeding ticket, okay. I had about $500 worth of speeding tickets in Dubai and didn't even know it. Didn't even know it. Why? Because they have these hidden cameras out in the desert. And you would think speed in the desert, what? You're the only car in the desert? And yeah, they were racking up speeding tickets on me. I go to the airport to leave, turn their car in. And they're like, oh no, you can't leave until you pay all these speeding tickets. I go, what speeding tickets? They laid them all out in front of me. Huh? Didn't even see that
The
coming.
fuck?
$500 worth of speeding tickets, right? And so if I didn't pay them, I don't get to leave. And so this happens a lot. You know, a lot of guys get stuck in these foreign countries for one reason or another because they owe money or something, and their passport gets flagged. They can't leave the country and they can't work, right? And it's called a velvet cage. So these guys are stuck in velvet cages and for maybe the rest of their lives until they pay off whatever debt it is they owe or for whatever. So this particular guy calls, he goes, look, he goes, I married this girl. Well, he didn't marry her. He was seeing this girl in this country. It was a communist country in call it East Asia. Um, and he wanted to get married. She didn't want to get married, had the baby. Long story short, they had a custody hearing. They both got 50-50 custody. She wouldn't let him see the kid. Why typical shit happens. And you think this happens just in America? Well, it happened in this country too, right? You know, women just weaponize children all the time. And so she didn't want him to see his son. And so there he had to use, they have to use an enforcement agency to make sure they arrange the meeting so the father can be with the son. The first guy, he paid him a bunch of money from this agency, and it's a government agency, and nothing happened. And he's like, I paid you a lot of money. How come I can't see my kid? Um, so he tried it again, and this time he told the agency, he goes, I'll pay you after you arrange for me to see my kids, and I'll pay you. And basically, they're like, oh, yeah, that's how we're going to roll. Watch this. They called immigration, flagged his passport. Now he can't leave the country. He can't work in the country. He was trapped in the country for 5 years, right? Literally. And I was like, how do you make your living? He was literally living out of backpack, shacking up here, shacking up there, you know, hotel here, hotel there. He was doing online, some kind of online tutoring. That's how he was making his money to sustain himself, right? I'm like, holy cow. He's like, he goes, and his mission was what he really wanted to do was leave the country with his son, who at that time, at this time is about 5 years old. And he goes, I have custody of the kid. He goes, I just don't have him with me, but he goes, I want to go pick him up. I know what school he goes to, when he goes to. I want to pick him up and I want to leave with my son. Can you make that happen? I said, yeah, we can make that happen. I said, but you know, we're gonna have to work on, we got to talk about some things, you know. So long story short, um, you know, originally we did some training online, you know, basically some preparatory work, if you will, area study analyses where, you know, okay, let's look at what are our options, right? How do we get, you're not getting out by airplane. You know, it's not, you're not getting on a ship, right? Your passport's flagged. Anywhere you got to go through a checkpoint, they scan your passport, flag's gonna come up, you're not going nowhere. I said, the only way we can do it is, you know, either by sea or by land. Sorry, it's my wife's alarm.
You're good.
Um, and so, you know, I did my map analyses. I had, while he was in country, I said, I need you to do some route reconnaissance and area reconnaissance, right? I mean, you go out and do surveys, look at everything from, you know, population density, um, route of travel, concealment, you know, would we be able to blend in to some degree, or we just stand out where everybody's noticing us? There's a lot that has to go into this thing, right? Developing the plan. So it starts with initial pre-planning, if you will, before I ever show up in country. I need most of this stuff already worked out before I get there. And we're going to have a pretty good idea how we're going to execute. In this particular case, the guy's a really good swimmer. Does a lot. He does a lot of surfing. In fact, he's an American, and he's been in Bali for 20 years, till about 5 years ago.
Hmm.
So this was actually his home here, right? And and so we looked at water options. Okay, maybe we're gonna have to do a swim. You know, we were looking at about 6 mile swim. That's actually not bad at all. At one point, 6 miles up to approximately 12 miles. And that could have been, we could have done that a couple of different ways. Well, some type of flotation devices. There's a lot of options, right, for moving bodies, you know, quickly, you know, under the radar, to include swimming to a board or whatever. We looked at that. We looked at riverine operations, going up rivers to cross borders, land operations, right? So as I'm doing all this planning, I'm thinking about, okay, we might have a 5-year-old boy in tow. Okay, is this going to work? So that ruled out the water option right away. So there's no way we're doing a water op at night with a 5-year-old, okay, in
Yeah.
oceans. Not happening. Finally, I decided that so here's what happened. So finally, right, we did the preliminary planning. I said, look, you need to have a go bag, which is nothing more than a backpack. I said, and everything you want to keep in life is got to fit in that backpack. You're not
Mm.
bringing nothing with you, right? That's it. It's going to carry it on your back. And I said, if you're bringing your boy, I said, you better have some change of clothes for this guy, and all the things you think he's going to need, right? It's not going to be much. Um, so we did all that. We did a lot of training on tradecraft. Okay, basically counter surveillance, surveillance, doing surveillance detection routes, close target reconnaissance, things like that. Right, these are relevant. You know, are we being watched? Are we being listened to? So even our communications had to be cryptic, using certain pro words. Um, you have to just assume somebody's watching and
Hmm.
listening, okay? And they're looking for you. Okay, you just got to be that paranoid. And so as we worked most of that out, and then I remember I arrived, I believe, on a Monday. Actually, it was Monday night. By the time I got there, got to my hotel, I sent him a message, and we linked up at a local like bar, wine lounge in the back. It was kind of dark, quiet, not a lot of people there. And went back there, had a quick beer, and kind of said, okay, 10 o'clock at night, here's the plan. Tomorrow I'm gonna do this. And then which was the next day, Tuesday, my job was basically rent a motorcycle. Um, that was an interesting story too on renting the motorcycle because what they wanted was my passport, right? So there's all these motorcycle rental places everywhere. And they wanted my passport. I go, no, you can't have that. Well, we want to make a copy of your passport. I'm like, yeah, no, you can't have that either, right? I'm not giving you anything like that, right? And we can't, you know, we can't give you the motorcycle. And I said, look, I said, fine. So we left and we went next door and we thinking the game, and then the vendor came back. Okay, I'll give you a motorcycle, but you got to give me this much money down. I said, okay, now we're talking. I'll give
Mm.
you money down, and they wouldn't give me the best motorcycle. They gave me this little freaking mini bike, right? It was fucking funny because it was a small motor scooter, man, but it was better than nothing. Yeah, I wore that thing out too, man. I rode it, so I ended up riding. I rode that thing. I remember on this particular day, I think I left around at 10 in the morning, and I rode, man, total all day. I rode at least 12 hours. I drove a long ways north. I rode the border roads, the boundary roads between checkpoints, did a lot of reconnaissance, man. And finally, I found one spot in about a 15-mile stretch. One spot, I go, okay, this probably will work. So I did a daytime survey on it, um, mapped it out. Go, okay, I got border checkpoints on the left, on the right. Okay, a mile from here, actually the border was about 200 yards from me, and then actually the MSR main, basically main route road was about a mile in front of me where I could see the road. I could see the trucks going back and forth. I go, this would be perfect. So I waited till it got dark. I have my night vision or night optics with me, and I'm looking again at night. What can I see? Am I seeing infrared lasers, lights, or anything like that? Right? Anything any kind of detection devices?
Hmm.
And no, I'm confident there's nothing out there like that either. I said it's pretty much a straight shot. And so weather was looking pretty good, although it rained most of that day. I was drenched, man, riding his motorcycle. Um, I remember about 4 hours and it was just dumping, man. Just, oh my God, it was tropical thunderstorm, right? It was pouring rain and I'm soaking wet. And I pull over to this little, I don't know what you want to call it, man, like a little fuel point, right? A little shop, I walk inside and I'm like, you sell raincoats here, rain jackets? They couldn't quite understand what I was saying. I give them hand arm signals, rain, itsy bitsy spider, coming out of my voice. So and I said, shh, cover up. And she's like, oh, no, 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 we don't have that here. I said, damn, okay, well, I can't hang out here. I got to just ride in the rain. She goes, wait. She runs in the back. She's rifling through something. She comes out with her own personal poncho, right? And she goes, here, take mine. I go, oh man. I said, okay. I said, look, how much? How much? She wouldn't take the money, right? I said, no, how much? She goes, no, it's okay. I go, really? I said, well, I want to buy something to drink. And so I bought just something like some water, and I gave her a bunch of money, like $20 for a bottle of water. She said, no. I said, no, it's good. This is good water. What's worth 20 bucks? So I'm glad though I had that poncho, man. She definitely hooked me up, man. So I jumped back on the bike, I go riding, and it was crazy, man. I was, it's pretty austere locations, man.
Mm,
In the jungle, nothing's out there. I'm like, man, if this bike breaks down on me or I
you're
wreck or something,
fucked.
yeah, I'm hosed, man. And but anyways, long story short, found the point, stayed till it got dark, checked it at night, go, Roger that, it's all clear, it's gonna be it. Headed back. Last about the last 3 miles coming back, that bike went tits up on me, man. I couldn't get it going faster than 10 miles an hour. Everything was slipping on it, and it was dying on me. I was like, about 3 miles out. I was like, okay, well, at least I'm close.
Yeah.
And I managed to make it back to my hotel, and then I called the client. We met again that night. I said, okay, here's the plan. We're good to go. I said, however, I said the kid's a no go, no go. We can't do the kid. And he kind of knew that was coming. I said, there's no way. We're literally talking about water crossing points, and I don't know the depth of some of these locations. I said, you're going to get wet, and I don't know how deep it's going to get and how dangerous it's going to get because there's a lot of dangerous shit out there, and particularly snakes and things like that. I said, it's a bad idea. Too many things go wrong. I said, you can go, he's got to stay. We'll figure out a plan later on for him, right? He totally agreed with that. And so the next day, so I said, look, but we're gonna need I said we could ride a motorcycle up there. It's gonna be a scene out of what's that movie? Dumb and Dumber, right? Where they're where they're riding that little mini bike going
Yeah.
right to
Yeah.
I been one of those scenarios, right? And it would have sucked because it would have been a long, long ride, probably at least 6 hours one
Fuck
way
that. Fuck
like
that.
that. And I said, we need to get a rental car. But that part of the world, if you want to rent a car, you got to get the driver. You have to have a driver go with it, right? They get rent you a driver. Like, we can't have a driver, right? So he managed to talk a friend that owned a rental car company to give us the rental car. He said, hey, my friend's got the international driver's license. And I just sent him the front of my international driver's license, but I didn't give him my picture or name. And he went with that. So they actually never had my name ever.
Mm.
They don't know who drove that car. And that was a good thing. I said, I worked out pretty good. So I got the rental car. The next day we picked it up. We drove, still drove for quite a while in the car, probably at least 4 or 5 hours. And the weirdest thing happened, right? And I kind of suspected it might happen. I was ready for it. All of a sudden he gets a text message on his phone. We're about 3, 4 hours into it. He goes, hey, are you guys going to the border? What? So they had a tracker on the car, right? They were
Yeah.
tracking it, and they knew exactly this. Oh, crap. But we already had a cover story for that. Oh yeah, we're gonna go over to this national park. We're gonna, we want to check out the national park. And then that was our primary story, national park. That's what we're gonna do, check out the national park. Although it was getting pretty late in the day, and we would end up in the national park at night,
Yeah.
you know, we I ended up what I ended up doing was false insertion. So, for example, instead of just heading in one direction, I'd make a hard left turn and drive for, 10, 15, 20 minutes in one direction, stop, and then turn around, drive back out, and then go another direction. And I never drove in a straight line. So it was just zigging and zagging and
Mm.
stopping and rolling, and so if they're tracking me on the map, going, where are these guys going? They're lost, right? But somewhere in that order of those movements, is where I actually did the infiltration, right? So I already knew who that
Mm.
was. And even the problem with that road was you couldn't get off the road. I mean, I found one spot where I could drive the car off the road about one car's length behind some trees. But if you were driving a car going past, you would have saw my car parked there. And so luckily the road though was not very busy. Um, and it worked out actually fine. We pull in there, lights out, he jumps out, grabs his shit, I jump out, grab my shit. And what we did was in the military, when I was, in special forces and LRPs, we still was called a listening halt, right? And when you initially infiltrate into, for example, the area of operations, particularly behind enemy lines, what you do is normally what you would do is you stop, look, listen, and feel. Okay. And in other words, stop moving, listen, look, kind of get a feel, kind of get a sense of the environment, kind of try to assimilate. And you also, listening for it. Are we being tracked or being followed? Is there cop cars coming? So that's what we do that because now we still have a chance to bail out if we need to get back in the car, right? So, part of our cover stop, if you will, was the look, listen, feel part was look, listen, feel, and pee, right? We're pissing. Dude, yeah, we just pull over and take a piss, right? That's kind of
Mm.
our cover story. Um, why you guys stop here? Oh, we're just taking a piss. But it's actually look, listen, feel operation as well. So once I was satisfied, okay, we're good. I remember there was one tree out in the open and there's rice paddy. I said, that tree right there is actually the border. I said, once we cross behind that tree, we're on the other side of the border going, where we need to be. But you still got about another mile to get to the MSR, the main supply route or main service road. Because then you're going to go either left or right on that road to a gas station, whatever, right? And
Mhm.
they don't have Ubers. Well, they do, but normally they use like Grab. They call them Grab cabs, right? It's an Uber, is what it basically is. And so we did that and took off, and I remember there was no moon, no illumination from the moonlight. Actually, pretty nice night, and took off. Started making our water crossings. A lot of these estuaries and small irrigation canals. Had to cross over those about waist deep. But at some point, once I felt like, okay, we're in this other country we need to be in, right? This was a neutral country, and they didn't have a reciprocal law. In other words, they wouldn't have brought him back. Oh no, you got to go back. He could have came over, and he did. Said, "Look, man, I'm not a fugitive, but I'm a what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? I have a brain fart. Basically, look, I'm trying to save my life. I'm in fear for my life, and I'm trying to
Mm.
escape this country, right? And so, this particular country would, take him in and help him out. So once we're deep enough, I'm like, okay, you can do the rest on your own. I showed him. I said, see that white light on that pole in that direction. I said, walk to that. When you're 200 meters out, offset to the right. I change your clothes, change your boots, whatever, because you're gonna be soaking wet. Put something else on and start walking, right? So,
Mm.
and I literally had him change his clothes. Like for example, going across was dressed in black. I said, when you get to the other side, take the black shirt off and put a white shirt on. So you
Mm.
look like, nobody's tracking you. It's like, oh, the guy had a black shirt. Well, this guy's wearing a white shirt, but could have been him. So we had, those are the kind of things we have to work out. And he made it out. I jumped the car right away. Made a couple of cover stops. Actually several cover stops along the way back. And I remember stopped at a restaurant. I opened the car doors. I didn't get out, just open the car doors and then close the car doors back up and then open the car doors up, close them back up, 10, 20 minutes later, just in case anybody's listening, feeling, also, watching.
Mm.
They got microphone recorders in the car. I don't know, right? So there was a lot of, he and we talked a lot of shit in the car out deliberately, thinking
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
being
yeah.
listened, right? So because you have to always assume somebody's looking and watching. And, so the cover story was, now that I'm short one man, it's just me in the car. If somebody goes, "Hey, where's the other guy at?" Oh yeah, man, we were supposed to meet some chicks up there, at this park, and my buddy's girlfriend was gonna bring another chick for me, but she didn't show up, so just him and his girl, and so they basically want to go eat, and they jumped in her car and they left, and I said, "I'll take the car back. Don't worry about me." So we all had it all worked out,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So cover for status, cover for action, all those types of things. But yeah, he made it out, and took him a minute to get out. he had to actually go through several countries, but he was able to get the help that he needed. Again, American Embassy was not cooperative. One Karen was like, "Oh my God, that's illegal what you just did." You know what's illegal? Is being contained in a country you can't get out for not doing nothing wrong because you wouldn't pay an extortion fee, right? That's
Mm.
what's illegal, should be, and instead of this broad, trying to help out American citizen, she's, "Oh my God, that's so wrong," and anyways, but there was a couple other guys that were like totally on board, like, "No, we get it, man," and they actually helped him out. But he made it out, and he's back here now. In fact, I'm gonna go meet him in a couple of nights. Be the first time since we did the recovery operation, and which is pretty cool. Well, I'm probably gonna be writing a book on that one too. Already got a pretty cool name for it, waiting for it. But yeah, there's a lot of this goes on out there. I've done stuff like this in the Middle East. I'm doing a project right now that also has to do with Europe and East Europe. Um, I'm working on a project right now, uh, again, in we'll just say the Philippines. It's not a recovery operation. I'll call that one an interdiction operation. Basically, we got to get between some people that are causing problems for other companies, hijacking their literally hijacking their companies, their internet systems, their banking information, their client lists, and they're creating mirror companies,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're taking all this stuff and putting it in their company and running with it, right? It's crazy, right? They're cloning somebody else's company, right? Like a parasite. They're working for this company on their board and they're taking all their shit and they're building their other company over here and they're loading it with this company's stuff. It's crazy, right? But you know, there's there's a lot of weird things that go on out there, but there's a lot of solutions that people need. And that's what I do is I bring solutions, to help them, solve these challenges. Whether it's bringing somebody back and somebody out. Um, I mentioned earlier before we talked about me going to another country in the Middle East. I won't mention that one either, but I had to go look for I had to look for a man that had been kidnapped a year ago, a multi-billionaire. Um, Popped up missing. We thought we had a pretty good idea where he was because we were able to pick up the geo coordinates on his phone, right, and locate where he was at, and he was actually in a detention center. So there's these places, there are these places in the world where, oh, we think you might be a criminal or you did some kind of broke a crime or committed a crime, right? No proof whatsoever. We're going to put you in this detention center, which is basically a jail, right? And we're going to leave you here until we're ready to, basically investigate and determine whether you're guilty of something or not. By the way, that happens quite a bit. There are people literally sitting in jail right now in countries that I know of personally that have been there for years, 3 to 5 years, have not been convicted of anything. They're just being detained until it's their day in court to figure out did they do something wrong or not. It's crazy, right? I mean, crazy. Well, where else is that happening? Let me think. January 6th, America, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many people's asses are sitting in the jail for something they didn't do? They just showed up in this area and they're sitting in jail because somebody PID'd them. You just had a guy on your show not too long ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
That yeah, his wife called me, asking
Jeremy,
me if I
yeah.
could on a podcast, and I'm like, you know what? I got a better idea. Let's get her on Tommy's show. More people listen to him than me anyway. So, um, but yeah, that shit happens all around the world. Now it's happening in America. That ought to
Mm.
give people a little bit of pause. Like, wait a minute, this is stuff that happens in third world, second world, and now it's happening in the first world.
Mm.
Yeah, think about that for a minute. Yeah, and so so there's a little bit of a business opportunity there for me. Obviously, I get to go out and help
Sure.
people, and pull them out of the shit. And try to restore some type of freedom for them and sovereignty again, but and people are willing to pay and they should because it's very risky work, anything I get caught, you know, I don't have to get caught doing anything wrong. Just trying to help a guy get out of the country is, we mentioned earlier, would be called human trafficking,
Yeah.
right? And so, and even if I didn't do anything wrong, I could still be sitting in one of these detention centers until they go, yeah, you what? You're right. 5 years ago, you didn't do anything wrong. You're free now. There's 5 years of my life is gone.
Yeah.
Uh, this is the world. This is the real world that's out here. And this is the same world that wants to destroy America and is successfully doing it right now. They're doing it. And a lot of these idiots, these dumb masses are just going right along with it like the Pied Piper, like, oh, they have no idea what's happening to us out there. I live it, I see it, I get to go and try to help people. But I can't save the world. I can only save, onesies and twosies here and there, but and I say save, yeah, in a lot of ways I am saving them because I'm getting them out of hell, or I'm giving them their freedom back, so they have, some liberty again, but it's amazing, right? When I hear these stories, I'm like, wait a minute, you can't. And by the way, a lot of these missions I do involve kids. It's
Mm.
because of actually several of them that the last one I've been doing is because some mom kidnapped the kid, even though she didn't have custody of the kid. The father had custody of the kid. She's a fugitive. She's a criminal, kidnaps the kid and runs off to a foreign country with him, right? And is hiding out with him. So she's actually a fugitive with children. Although they might be her kids, she has no legal custody of them. The father does. And the father goes, I want my kids back because they're better. Look, they're better off with the father anyway. Statistically, that's a fact, all right? All kids are much better being raised by a single father than a single mother. And
Mm.
those are facts that have already been borne out many times. When you go into statistics of kids ending up in prison and jail and things like that, 90 something percent of the kids that are raised by single fathers turn out straight. They don't go to jail, they don't get in trouble. Some ridiculous number, like 76% of kids that are raised by just a mom end up being in some kind of a derelict, whether it's a criminal or just, drugs or whatever. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. But anyways, there's a lot of that going on, right? So, the kids' issues, I find myself helping out with that quite a bit. Um, and it's always going helping the dad trying to find his kids, There's big business in that. I know guys have been doing this for a very long time. In fact, I collaborate with one particular guy who's been doing this for at least 35 years. Former Delta operator, one of the original Delta operators, and I'm still working with him on some of these projects, Um, so it happens a lot, and there's money involved. It has to be. It's got to be, and it's a lot of money because some of the ways we've got to get these people out of there, you can almost forget about an airplane.
Yeah.
Um, Almost forget about it. It's probably not going to happen. Because you got tail numbers, passport aircraft need, permission to fly in a certain airspace and land and blah, blah, blah. That raises all kinds of flags. There's still an immigration process goes along with that. Very difficult, very risky. Unless you kind of figure out a way to, grease the skids with immigration or snap a couple guys off, go, hey, just turn your head when we walk
Mm.
through, throw a stamp on there.
Yeah.
Uh, but I know guys have tried that route and ended up after they paid all the money, thought they were clear, still got arrested. They got
Oh yeah,
turned
no,
in by
you could get doubly fucked. Yeah, no, your
yeah,
situation could be worse.
yeah, get paid by, exactly, get turned in by the same guy you paid to help you out, right? You know, and so you can't trust anybody. That's the other thing. You can't trust anybody, nobody. Um, so, getting out is usually by land or by sea. It's going to be something to that effect, and even if you get into a foreign country, you still got issues, right? Because it's like, oh, how'd you get here? You have to
Mm.
tell them how you got there, or you could better have a pretty damn good cover story. Okay. Like for a good cover story that works sometimes is, you know what? I got robbed. I lost my passport, my wallet, all my shit. You go to the embassy, go, can I get a temporary emergency passport so I can leave? Right. Problem is when that host country goes, oh, let me look inside the system here, but we don't have any registry of you coming in our country. How'd you get in my country? Oh no, I came through here and the guy stamped it. Well, no, it's not in the system, which by the way does happen. I was coming through the Philippines just now, and now I was there 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and I was there over 6 weeks ago. And on the way out, I was only there overnight. And they go, you have your extended visa? I go, for what? I just here one night. No, for when you came here in November. I go, damn, that far back? I go, I didn't overstay any of my visa. I never stayed more than a couple of days, 4 or 5 days max. And so somebody screwed up. They did stamp my passport, but they didn't have me in the system, right? Maybe the system. So it happens, right? And it happened to me. And next thing I know, like, oh, don't go nowhere, sir. Stay right there. And, shit, here we go, right? And shit show's getting ready to start. And luckily, in this case, one was like, okay, you're good. They figured it all out. But so mistakes are made as well. But you know, but it's getting harder. It's you don't get away with as much anymore. Systems are getting better,
Mm.
and they're pretty good at tracking people. So you got to be really creative on your exit strategies, for getting people out. So, anyways, long story short, there's a service there. There's a need for that. It's risky business for everybody. A lot of things can go wrong. Um, Better have your shit wired tight. But this is why you better count on experts. Don't just hire some dude. Oh, I can do it. No,
Don't hire
no,
me. Don't hire me.
no,
If he doesn't look
no.
like Dale.
Well, let me tell you something. I'm pretty good at what I do, but just takes one mistake, one misstep, overlook one thing. Like, well, I didn't
Mm.
see that. Too late. You're done. Or you have a client that doesn't tell you everything, right?
Yeah.
They leave out important facts that, it would have been nice to know this, you know. Yeah, it was crazy. And it's one of the last trips I just did in the Middle East was like that. I didn't start getting important information till after I was already there, knee deep, and say, "Ho, ho, 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 hit the
Oh yeah.
brakes."
What the fuck is this? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we had some potentially close calls for sure. Um, Very close calls, but anyways, I'm still here, I'm still free. Mission accomplished for the most part. Um, Anyways, exciting times, but like we started, we're in World War III. A lot of freedoms are being lost, being compromised. There is an agenda. It's not a conspiracy. Okay. I think most people understand this is not a conspiracy. This is deliberate.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard maybe to believe that this is all deliberate. There is an element out there that wants to take your freedom. There is an element out there that wants to control you. Look, man, the 2030 agenda, from the World Economic Forum, right? What do they say? Klaus Schwab, you'll have
You'll
nothing and
own
be
nothing
happy.
and be happy.
Right. So I mean, they're going that they're even saying it out loud now, over and over and over. We know it's real, it's coming. My example, I started off with my wife in the immigration situation. Why are they not letting my wife in? Why do they deport my wife, but they let everybody else in? That's illegal because it's
Mm.
part of the plan, right? And it's not for our good. The government doesn't care about you. They're not looking out for you. They're looking out for themselves, the people in control. They're using the government as a weapon. Nothing. It's a tool to garner more power, control, right? And you, me, you know, average person out there, most people out there, I would say all but about 1,000 people in the world don't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, whole thing about, COVID, they wanted to depopulate the planet and bring it down to 500 million. Yeah, they've actually talked about that. They've actually mentioned that. Even Bill Gates. I mean, he's on live briefings, he's on video briefings, giving it to CIA and others, talking about depopulation. And it
Yeah.
almost worked with vaccines. I mean, they're not even trying to hide it no more, you know? So, if I had any advice for anybody out there, prepare yourself. Prepare yourself. Make sure you got food and water. Make sure you got weapons. You might not like guns. If you don't like guns, well, guess what?
Get
You know
over it.
what you are? A victim. You're gonna be a victim because those that have guns will come and take your stuff.
Yeah.
All right. When it gets down to that, 72 hours, after 72 hours, it's gonna be, the Omega Man syndrome. It's gonna be everybody for themselves.
Mm.
Yeah. And there's a movie out right now which I thought was pretty interesting. And thought it was pretty good until I found out Michelle Obama and her husband, a jackass, they actually were the producers on that thing. What was it called? Oh, man,
It's something to, yeah, no, last man out.
yeah, something like that, right?
Something about a civil war, yeah.
Yeah, but that was a great example of, within days, all of a sudden, it's every man for himself, you know, and that's what it's going to turn out to be. You know, maybe there's going to be enclaves, I think, where people are going to help each other and look out for each other.
Hmm.
And what do those enclaves look like? I think the enclaves normally are going to be any community less than 500 people. Now, why do I
Yeah.
say that? Because, if you look at, if you go back in history of mankind, it wasn't until when we were tribes and small bands of people, less than 500, we worked as a community, we worked together. There was leadership, there was a hierarchy, and there was a synchronicity. There was all those things we needed to function as a small village and thrive, right? It wasn't until we started growing bigger than 500. I believe the number was 500.
One of the
That all
numbers is 125. I know that.
Yeah, and then finally, what happened was, once we started going beyond 500, now we're going into agriculture, right? Because we need to grow stuff, to feed everybody and trade, okay? Because we can't grow it, but they can grow
Hmm.
it, so stuff, and also we create this thing called society. We even created this monetary system. It's fake
All
wealth,
dog
right?
shit.
Fake value. We say, okay, this has value. Like what? Yeah, this little round thing, this little round clam has value,
Yeah.
So we create all these artificial, if you will, constructs to manage our reality. We literally have artificial constructs to to shape our own reality, to live in it. That's the weirdest concept when you really
It's,
think about
well, I mean, it's like borders, right?
it.
It's, the astronauts always say when you go up there, they go, it's so odd looking at the Earth and you don't see lines in it. It's,
Right,
but you got to remember is like that also exists, yeah, with money, right? With
yeah,
language that we have these, right? Today is not just, 10,000 years ago, today is just a fucking day. But
yeah.
now it's Wednesday,
Well, think
right?
about that for a second. We even created this thing called time and days and hours and minutes, right?
Yeah.
We create weird concepts, right? That we create a time. Like there's really no time at all,
No.
but we created if you will, a metrics of our length of how long we should live.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but but anyways, at the end of the day, man, I think the smaller communities you might see, self people helping each other and staying together. The larger communities, you're not gonna, dude. Imagine New York or San Francisco.
No, fuck
Holy
that.
shit, man. They're not going to be helping each other. They don't help each other out now. They destroy each other. You
Yeah.
know, They-
Yeah.
they're destroying each other right now for everything, for nothing, man. Pair of Nike tennis shoes or whatever. Um, so I don't know. I think that's where we're going. Be prepared and you know, remember who the enemy is. The enemy isn't your neighbor.
No.
It's not your neighbor. Your neighbor might be an idiot because he's actually believes the enemy what they're saying. He might be an idiot, but he's actually not the enemy.
No.
The enemy is the puppeteer on top, right? The
Yeah.
manipulators, politicians, and the journalists, by the way, the media. And I've always said this too: if there's ever going to be a civil war, a revolution, the first thing you got to do, the first thing that needs to happen, is you take out all news media,
Hmm.
every journalist, everybody out. Why? Because now they can't communicate, they can't spread more propaganda, right? And you're basically what you're doing is the government has no means now to share their propaganda information with the masses because they normally use the media to do that. But if you take out the media, which by the way is not very honest, right? We already know that they're all lying. It tells us what they want us to believe, right? It's usually a scripted, it's a scripted narrative. So, have you ever seen the videos of all the news channels? They're all saying the same
Pfizer.
exact same time,
Oh
right?
yeah, it's like today in New York, and today in New York, and today, and it's just like 4,
Right,
8, 16. And then there's like
right.
180 of them, and you're like, it's not even that it's like a similar topic. It's
right?
word for word.
For word, right?
Yeah,
Word for word. And so here's the thing problem I have with the journalists is most of them are liars and they're brainwashed, right? And they're just a mouthpiece for the propagandists, the government,
your
right?
scribes.
If you take out that communication link, now what happens is the government has no way of really influencing, the grander population. Now, how do, you know, if you will, how do the warriors, if you will, the civilians communicate? Well, there's ways we can communicate on the ground level, right? If CB radios, hand arm signal, hell, fucking messengers, it doesn't matter. We don't even have to have communication. We just need to have a strategy, and
Mm.
everybody sticks by the strategy. But I would argue that those are the first ones that have to go. One, I hate to say it, but most journalists are dishonest. They're liars and manipulators. I've got a lot of experience with them, and they're full of shit. They're idiots. Many of them are just idiots, right? And they just parrot the same bullshit everybody else feeds them. That's I think that's the first thing that's got to happen, man. In a civil war, and take away their ability to communicate with you, and basically mislead you and your idiot neighbor, right, who might be listening. But we'll see. This is going to be the year, man. This is going to be the year. It's going to be the year. It has to be because at the end of the day, man, if Trump doesn't get elected, who are they going to bring in? I'd
Well,
love to have DeSantis in there, right? But will he make it? I don't know. You know, everybody's afraid of Trump. Everybody's afraid of
yeah.
Trump. Think about the world. Look at the world where we're at today. This didn't happen when Trump was in office. There was no war. There was peace, prosperity.
Literally the Abraham Accords in the Middle East. Yeah.
Yeah, everything was great, and now look at it, man. Like literally, people are literally afraid of dying in a nuclear war, man. I mean, we're right on the cusp of it, man. Look what's going on in the Middle East, and um, so anyways,
It's, I guess really the only, I guess, silver lining or positivity I could find is this. I just started a book the other day. It's like a I don't know, history of firepower by David Lockhart, and it's goes just through all of time of just weapons. And right now I'm on like muskets and shit. But there's like a quote from somewhere in the 1500s, and it's like even now we look at we have quotes like religion's the opium of the masses, but it's like in the 1500s, like even the kings and queens, like they truly did believe in you know the Bible or the Quran, whatever, right? There was even though they're educated and they're the elite, there was still a sense of they did believe in this, and they're talking about the
yeah,
pride of warships and whatever. But there was a quote, and it's like obviously it's translated to modern English, but it was like from 1510, and it's some guy in the king's court, and they're talking about like why they're going to war with some other country. And they go like, "Well, it is quite clear, gentlemen, that the end times are upon us, and that our enemy is working for the Antichrist." And I just thought about that, and I was like, God, that fits right now too. And the only
yeah.
hope I have is it seems like all throughout human history, we're always convinced that we're right at the fucking edge. And we might always be right. You only need to be right once, right? And we kind of
Huh.
are with nuclear weapons. But reading that, it was just a brief kind of glimmer of hope that they were convinced that their enemy was working for the Antichrist, Klaus Schwab, and that the end times are here. And I don't know. I have I mean, Cuban Missile Crisis, you can find all these quotes from the Kennedy administration of these guys that like went home on a Friday, and they're kind of, they're like, well, guys, hope to see you in heaven. And
Huh.
that doesn't mean that it can't happen, but there's been many a scenario before where, I mean, everyone believed it was the end. They're closing the vault doors and or
Well, it was the end for some because
well, a
even
lot of
now
time, yeah,
it was the end for many on COVID. And like I said, COVID was a part of
Sure.
this battle. It was part of the battle, man.
Oh
It's a
yeah.
bio, and a lot of people have lost their lives. If it wasn't to the virus itself, it was to the vaccine. It's
Hmm.
more so now to the vaccine, um, which, by the way, the numbers are still growing and
Hmm.
mounting, and will continue to mount as the years go by. Um, and then there was the other part where I mentioned earlier, the collateral effect, where maybe people weren't affected by the vaccine or the virus directly, but indirectly they lost their livelihoods, their
Hmm.
businesses, and or took their own lives because they were starving to death, right? So when you look at those numbers, how many people actually died from that, right? How many people died, right? And so let's just say it wasn't even COVID, right? Which I think it was a lie. Okay, I think a lot of it was a lie. I think a lot of people just died from the flu, which, by the way, a lot of people do die from the flu.
Yeah.
Suddenly, the flu numbers went to the basement. It's like, where the
They
flu go?
vanished. They went down to zero.
Right, right. And so, but let's just say, okay, so they want to blame it on COVID. Well, either way, it's a we'll put it in the kill category for COVID. People died of COVID, the vaccines, and the collateral effects, right? How many millions was that? I'm pretty sure is several million. I don't know exactly how many, but it was
Just
a
the
lot.
just the virus is it was 6 or 7.
Okay. Okay. Now think about the vaccines. How many people don't even, and maybe they're not even know it was the vaccine that killed them,
Yeah.
all the people that got COVID, people died in a motorcycle crash and died of COVID
Hmm.
because it's like, huh? How's that work? So, how many people died now and don't even realize it was from the vaccine itself, right? So, who knows what the body count will eventually be? But I would assume that we're probably at least around 10 million right now,
I'd say
the
bare
minimum.
minimum 10. And then you look at
Yeah,
the high estimates of World War II, including civilian. The high estimates is 85 million.
yeah,
We're at 1/8. We're at like
yeah,
what's that? 12, 15%? We're at
yeah,
15% of okay, now let's throw in I mean, how many soldiers has Russia lost? Like 500,000? Is Ukraine's
yeah,
at like 600? There's another 1.1.
yeah. Well, and you think about
It's
the all the civilians that have died so far from COVID, all right, they're not even direct casualties of of bombs and bullets, right?
no.
So, they're just hanging around the house and dying
Yeah.
from this. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's not a trivial statement that in the last 3 years, it's, you can say, these are the opening shots of World War III. And it's like, why do you say that? And it's like, well, it's very is the conservative estimate, I would say is, yeah, probably close to 10 or 11 mil.
yeah,
That ain't nothing, man.
yeah,
That 10 or 11
exactly.
million, 1.5 million civilians in the war on terror over 20 years. We're at
Yeah,
10 and 11 million in 3 years.
yeah,
Dude, that's something that you really gotta like take a step back from and be like, oh shit. Like,
yeah,
I always say this is we look back at World War I and World War II, and it's neat and concise, right? September 1st, 1939, Blitzkrieg in Poland. August 9th, 1945, we dropped the second nuke. It's bookmarked and it's easy. You go beginning and the end, right? You're like a podcast. You look at it, there's the beginning and there's the end. But when you're doing a podcast, you don't know if it's going to go for 30 minutes. Sometimes they go for 6 hours. You don't know. These things are bookended. Right now, we're in the midst of this chaos, and in 100 years, how are your great grandkids gonna in social studies class, they're gonna be like, well, and just like Archduke Franz Ferdinand getting shot and setting off World War I, they're gonna look back and it's gonna be bookended. They're gonna be like, well, it's now widely believed that COVID was the beginning of World War III, and we can by this document and that document and all this shit, but you don't see it when you're in it, right?
right,
We're here now. You look back at World War II, you read books, all the scientists leaving Germany in the early 30s, all the Jews leaving, you can find their journals and shit, and they're like, something's weird, man, something's off. And we look back at it now, we go, how come no one was leaving? No one fucking knew. It's like right now, we're in the fog of war right now.
yeah, yeah,
Ugh.
yeah. And you move along in oblivion, not realizing that you're in trouble and don't even know you're in trouble. So you're not taking any kind of precautions to
Mm,
mitigate potential that could happen. You're not
mm,
thinking about that because, well, everything's pretty cool. I still got electricity. My phone works. I got TV. I still got food and stuff. So I must
mm.
be good. But you don't realize that the wolf is at the door.
Yeah.
He's come in and munch on, Um, That's and this two people get too complacent, and they don't like to think for themselves. They like the government to think for them. They like everybody else to think for them, and they listen to everybody that yells the loudest, you know. And unfortunately, the people that yell the loudest are usually not the good guys.
Mm.
They're the maniacal left wing radicals, man, that make the most noise. Sometimes they do it on deliberately. Sometimes they do it because they're just useful idiots. Um, but yeah, it's crazy, man. It's hard to believe that we live in a world like this, but you know, maybe it's always been like this, right? So, you know, maybe it's
That's
always been like this. You know, it's just we're it's just a more modern version of of the past, you know.
I
And
I do part of me does think that is, and I'm biased because I'd like for that to be the case, right? Because it means we're not fucked. But I do sometimes go, do we are we not just all like learning about it because we're all constantly like, updating everyone on everything? Like it's another part of me thinks like it's probably all fucking crazy. It's probably always been batshit insane, just on the edge of like fucking black plagues and inquisitions and wars and nukes, and kind of think it's maybe always been like this.
prohibition. Yeah, there's always something, right?
Yeah.
Every epoch of time, there's some weirdness going on, you know, prohibition and
Yeah,
I mean,
you're always on the edge. It's like when like learn, I don't know, get older, I remember like learning biology and shit, and you start to realize just how fragile the human body is, and you're like, "Oh my God."
yeah,
And then you kind of go through these like existential crises, but then as time goes on, you go, "Wait, it's always been like this." And I didn't
yeah,
know, and I was fine. I never once knew that, like, yeah, every once in a while, so, somebody's blood vessel in their head just explodes. It's an aneurysm. You're dead. You're like, oh my God. It's like, yeah, but it's been that way for all of human history. You just
yeah.
now you know about it, and you know, it's
It's part of, it's the human condition, you know, and but it doesn't have to be that way. It will always be that way. You know, people think there's a utopia out there. We can create a utopia. There's no such place. There will never be such place. You know, I believe it was Gustave Le Bon that said that man is the
like,
warring ape.
yeah.
You know,
You read the
and
book,
we've
yeah, the
always,
book, The Crowd. Yeah,
yeah, and you know, we've had probably what at least 12,000 wars since the dawn of man.
yeah.
You know, it's always motivated, I think, by three principles. It's three tenets, if you will. One is the lust for power. The other is the lust for money. But power and money go hand in hand. If you got power, you get money. If you got money, you got power. And the last one is pussy. You know,
Hmm.
procreation.
Yeah,
You know, at the end of the day, you know, I mean, think about everybody that has a lot of money. Just think about wealthy men, for example. Um, that want all this money. Why for example, let's just say billionaires, the billionaires that I know of. When you have billions of dollars and you've bought everything you can possibly buy, you've experienced everything you can possibly experience with billions of dollars, and why do you keep trying to make more billions? It's not about making more money. It's about literally competition. You want to have
mm,
more money than the guy next to you,
yeah.
right? How much can I make, right? And so it becomes so easy for them. See how much money I can make. Um, so for them, it's a power trip, if you will. You know, more money, more power you have, more influence you have, more control you have. So they go hand in hand. The money and the power goes together. Why would you want all that? Well, fill a basic need, security, right? If you got that kind of power and that kind of money, you're pretty safe. You can buy security, you can buy a lot of things to protect you and your family, right? And then the last one is family, right? Procreate. You know, what if I was a rich man, like, and I had everything I could possibly want, right? What, how kind of fun would I have, right? If it was just for me?
Mm,
I want to be able to share it, right, with either one woman or many women. But
mm,
at the end of the day, you know, that's why men we garner wealth. We want wealth, right? Is one to be happy. What's the point of having a private jet you can fly anywhere around the world, but you don't get to have
by
any fun
yourself.
with it,
Yeah,
right? You're by yourself, right? It's
yeah.
not. It's not. It defies, you know, our the human condition. So I see it that way. Is we're doing it for power, pussy, and money. They all go hand in hand. They're interrelated, and it's part of our nature. And how much money does a person need? Fuck, as much as you want.
Mm,
I don't have a problem with how much money. Me personally, I don't need billions of dollars. Would I take it? Of course. Why wouldn't I? But I just need enough money to be able to take care of my family and be free and call my own shots and not be, at the bend of knee, bend of knee at, for the government or anybody else out there. I would like to have that kind of sovereignty.
yeah.
Uh, John Wayne said, it's a lot easier to cry in a Mercedes than on a bicycle, right? And a lot of truth to that.
I haven't heard that. That's great. That's
Yeah.
fucking sick. Yeah. No, that is good. Yeah. And then what was it? Alex McCandless, the book Into the Wild, the kid that like went off into Alaska and died. The famous picture of him by the school bus. But his final note was, "Happiness is only real when shared." And
Yeah.
yeah, I think about that as like, what are you gonna do with it? What's the point of having it?
Well, that's my point about, the power, pussy, and money, right?
Yeah.
It's all about what happiness and security. When you're secure, you're happy. You ain't happy when you're not secure, right? You're
Yeah.
scared.
Yeah.
So when you're secure, you're happy. And who you gonna share the happiness with, right? You want to share your happiness. You want to share your stuff, It makes you
Mm.
feel good, makes you happy, right?
Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody that's wealthy that wants it is greed, like I'm gonna keep it all for myself and I share any of it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, for no other reason, it's for, narcissistic purposes. Sometimes, I want to have all this wealth to show it off.
Yeah.
Some people are like that. Not everybody, but some. So anyways,
Yeah.
anyhow,
No, I mean, yeah, we'll wrap it up in a sec. But like, yeah, like with the podcast, I love it. It's cool. It's slowly making money, not fast enough. Slowly, it's cool to get views, all that good shit. My legitimate favorite things are like what we did is when I catch up with someone for like 10 minutes beforehand.
yeah,
And I'm like, those are the most real interactions. It's not the doctors like, "Tommy, how you been, man? What's going on?" And we just fucking no, there's no audience. We're just like laughing and like whatever. Like to me, I'm like, that's so much more real than like anything else. I'm like, that's like the true value of like, oh yeah, no, this is my buddy Dale. Like we're just catching up and joking and shooting this shit about X, Y, and Z. And that's what makes me happiest. And you know, there is something almost beautiful about the fact that we are the warring ape, that it is nonstop. Yeah, we'll get to Mars and then we'll be fucking killing each other there. There is something beautiful about the madness and the chaos because it's in that darkness that you can still do good shit. Like you don't hear about it because it doesn't trend. It's not a sexy story. But like even when it's like, yeah, man, I hope nuclear war doesn't happen, but there's a homeless shelter right down the street. You still drive by there every day. You see people walking in there with like ramen noodle or toilet paper. Even if they got $5 extra, they're go dropping it off there. And it's like you only hear about like how many tanks were just destroyed in Kyiv or how many, Hamas people were just vaporized by the IDF or something. And you don't see that. And it's like, why is that still happening?
yeah,
Everything's so fucked. Like a bioweapon killed 10 million people. And you still see someone just walking down there on a Tuesday. It's not even Christmas. It's like just walking down there on a random day in January, just like, just bringing some groceries. And it's like, why? It's like, hey. And you're like, there is some beauty in that. And that might be, who knows, that might be the whole purpose of it all is like, what goodness do you do even when shit's completely fucked? You know?
well, that said, I want to share a little closing thought.
Sure.
I think it's a great story, and it kind of segues right into what you just said.
Sure.
It's a story about my dad. And I always tell people the greatest lesson I ever learned from my dad was after he passed away. Like my dad taught me the best life lesson ever after he was dead. And I didn't, yeah. And it took another person to share the message. So here's what happened. So my dad's always been, like my superhero.
Hmm.
He always was, right? And then he passed away in 2012. And I remember I won't go into all the details on that one. It's just suffice to say it was a bad time, obviously.
Sure.
Passed away. We were at the memorial service one night at the church. And when it was all over, my dad had a 21 gun salute because my dad was a veteran and I brought, he deserved it, right? So we had all that set up. And then at the end, we all met at the back of the church. It was evening. Everybody's shaking hands, hugs, condolences. And this woman walks up to me, my mom, my sister, and she introduces herself as a nurse. And she said that she knew my father and she read in the newspaper that he had passed away. And she wanted to come that night to the service and also share some information with my mom and my sister. Like, okay, we didn't know who she was, right? So she's like, I'm so and so, but I want to tell you something about your dad and your husband. I think it's important that you guys know this about your father. And so, right, I'm thinking, oh shit, are you his mistress? He
You
owes
got
you
a
money.
brother. Yeah.
Right, something's going on here, right?
Yeah. You're like, not
There's
now, not now.
always someone is going to come along and kind of screw everything up, right? And so we're looking intensely, listening to her, and she goes, "Here's what she goes. I want you to know this." She goes, "For the last several years, she goes, I've been a nurse at this one particular nursing home in Sacramento, California." And she goes, "Every day for the last several years, for about an hour every afternoon, my father would come by this nursing home and he would come and see one old lady that had no family, no children, no friends, nobody. She's all alone. He would come there every day for 1 hour. He would bring her magazines, newspapers, food, candy, drinks, and sit down with her for an hour and just shoot the shit. She had another human
Provide
to
human
talk to.
connection.
Yeah, that's all he did. And he never told anybody about it.
That's beautiful.
Years, for years. No, my mom didn't know. I didn't know. We never missed the guy. It's like he did it during the middle of the day while he's supposedly at his office on the way home or whatever, right? And maybe an hour every day, but he did it every day like clockwork. And the nurse said, "I thought you guys should know that. That's the kind of man
That's
your father was."
incredible.
I remember sitting there thinking, God dang, man, how do you cap that? How do you freaking,
Yeah.
how do you get over that bar, man?
Yeah.
Because, but here's the lesson that I got out of that, right? It's like, okay, now that was a real act of, selflessness right there. I mean, that was how, that's really what it's all about. When you talk about helping people, you don't need to have a pat on your back and people notice you doing it. If you're really committed to helping people and you're not in it for yourself in any way, and you do that, that's true. That's real love for
That's,
humanity.
yeah.
Uh, and so, you know, and I thought about that. I was like, man, well, how do I do something like that? And because, it's my dad, he's my inspiration. And, and I was now compelled, inspired to do something like that. So I'm not going to tell you what I do,
Yeah.
because that would just
That would
be
defeat it. Yeah.
that defeat the whole point, right? I do some things that part of the coaching stuff that I do is for that purpose. Um, I really do enjoy doing it because I get to help people and be better versions of themselves. So I'm giving them something, but it's not just that. Um, but that's pretty uplifting.
Mm.
That whole thing was uplifting that day. I'm like, wow, best lesson I ever learned from my dad was that. And I've learned some good lessons from my dad before, but that one was like, okay, that's the top, man, right there. That's the ultimate lesson. And thank God for the nurse because we didn't know who she was. She read it in the newspaper and she felt obligated to come to service and tell us, you know. And so thank you for her, right?
Yeah.
Having the courage and the will and to come down there and tell us that because that was a game changer. By her doing that, what she just did was inspire me, at
Yeah.
least me, how about my sister
To pay
or
it
my mom.
forward.
Yeah, exactly, right. So because that could have all nothing could have happened if she had not shown up.
Could have, yeah, that would have vanished into, that
Yeah.
would have vanished into nothingness.
So if more people were like that and stop waiting for and stop looking for other people to pat them on the back, go look what I'm doing. If you just really did it out of your heart, man, the whole world could be a better place, right? No,
Mm.
we're gonna always have really bad, evil people, no matter
Sure.
what. They're gonna
Sure.
take advantage of you. They do it all the time, you know. Um, but at the end of the day, man, if more people were doing that, the world might be just a little bit better. At least for some people, it would be better, right? And
Mm,
you know what? If you're doing it and maybe you're not making much of a difference for other people, you know what you're doing? You're making yourself feel better.
mm,
You're doing something good for your soul too, right?
yeah,
And so nurturing your own soul is what you're doing. If you
yeah,
can't nurture somebody else's, you're nurturing your own. Look, I've helped people that have shit on me,
yeah.
and it's just, you have too. You've gone out of your way and you've helped people quietly, and then they turn around and throw it back in your face. Like, what? And they completely flip the script. I got a guy I'm dealing with right now,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I mean, it's like, no, dude, you're actually describing what I did for you. You didn't do this
Yeah.
for me. It's like some weirdness, but that's again, that goes back to the human condition. And you know what, people like that, they'll get their due, they'll get karma. They'll die miserable.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. If you want to be a lump of shit, be a lump of shit and die a lump of shit. Me, I'm a better person than that. I'm gonna try to help where I can, do what I can for people. Whatever's in my power that I can do. And this is why, I said earlier, look, I'm willing to go do dangerous shit and risk everything. Look, I got family. I got lots of family spread around the fucking world. I got lots of family that depend on me. And I go do dangerous shit. We have one for money. Okay, I do want to get paid because it is
Sure.
dangerous, it is risky. But two, I understand people's plight, man. Some people are like in a desperate situation. I'm like, what if it was me?
Yeah.
Would somebody get me? Probably, maybe, if I can find somebody like that. There's not a lot of people out there like that, like me. I feel like if I can help you, I will do it. I'll be careful. I'll be calculated in everything I do to protect myself and make
Mm-hmm.
sure this is successful and I don't put my own family in jeopardy in harm's way. But I'll do that. I can't do it for free. I mean, stuff like that costs money, right? I mean, travel and food and equipment, whatever, to make it actually happen. Um, but I do it because it's something I'm giving something, because
Mm.
I'm getting something. But look, I'm giving more than I'm getting. I'll tell you that right now. What I'm giving is I'm putting my entire life, literally my own life and my family's livelihood on the line for you, you know. Think about that. And there's no amount of money that would be equal to, is going to be equitable for that. At the end of the day, I'm getting paid money, but if you really had to pay me what, I'm worth, you couldn't afford me,
Yeah.
you know, couldn't afford my family because you're, but anyways, so that's kind of why I do that too, because, it's compassion and, if I can help people and I can use my skills to help people, then, in a good way, then I'm willing to do that. And by the way, I don't go help criminals. You're a criminal, too bad. I'm sorry. I'm not helping you. But if you're a good person, I know you're a good person and I have every reason to believe you're a good person, I'm going to help you. If I can help you, I'll help you, you
Mm.
know?
I
Anyways.
was I was gonna say no. That's a beautiful story about your dad, and one way to look at it would be, I would imagine for every one of your dad you got to hear that story, there's probably 9 or 99 stories where the nurse didn't get in touch with the family. But that
Right.
doesn't mean that those things didn't happen. So
Right.
unlike, if it bleeds, it leads, where we see every little negative thing, you hear about every armed robbery in every town, and you're like, oh my God. But then this shit, I would imagine probably 99% of it vanishes. Doesn't
Yeah.
mean it didn't happen. So it's like there might be a lot more good going on in the world than we'll ever know. But the thing is people do it quietly. They do it humbly, right? And some people get a glimpse into it like you. There's probably a lot of dads that, that happened and they never told a soul and the children never found out, and it doesn't
Yeah.
mean it didn't happen. So
But you know
it's
what? When you do something like that, if I'm thinking now, there's been more than one occasion where I've had people buy my dinner, not tell me they're going to buy my dinner. I get ready to pay my bill. Go, oh, it's already been covered. By
yeah.
who? Already left. But
Yeah.
what?
Oh, sure.
I've had people like, because if they know I'm a veteran or they see me with my service dog, they pay for my dinner. And I don't take my dog out, and I'm not looking for free dinner. But they do that and then just disappear. They don't even,
Oh
it's like,
yeah.
where they at? Gone.
Oh yeah.
I came back one time from Indonesia. I went back to Florida and I had my car parked outside for a couple months. I had a car cover on it. Well, what happened was apparently with the wind blowing and everything else, it got all shredded up. Somebody, while I was gone, went out and bought a brand new car cover for my car and covered my car up. Like, wow, this brand new car cover.
Yeah.
That wasn't cheap, like 60, $70. And then I don't know who it was. Nobody ever said it. It's like, wow, that's so there are people out there that do stuff like that. And when they do things like that, it's a great example for others like me to follow. It's like, man, you know what? People have gone out of their way to do this for me. Maybe I can do something for somebody else.
Mm.
So try to, because of them, now I'm gonna try to do better and be better,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What's really cool is when you can do it and nobody knows you did it.
Yeah.
You know,
It's the best feeling.
that's really
It,
the cool part, man. You
yeah.
know,
You feel like Santa Claus.
yeah. If you're doing it for recognition, then you're not doing it for yourself. I mean, you're not doing it for them. You're doing it for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, um, it's called what's it called? It's called the law of what's it called? Law of not polarity, but not law of negative effect. But essentially, it's kind of like a law of reciprocity. There it is. That's what I'm looking for. The law of reciprocity. When you do things for other people without the expectation of getting anything back, they'll come back to you
It always
manyfold,
comes back. It always comes back.
manyfold. Whether they're not, I've got lots of examples of that. My wife and I, like, a lot of times we just do things and don't even know we're doing it. Like we'll give money away, beggar, hey, just take the money and go.
Yeah,
We're not.
yeah, yeah.
And then it's like, whoa. Like here's another one story. Now shut up.
Yeah, you're good.
So a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I don't know what it was now. Well, one night we were riding here in Bali and late at night, like 10, 11 o'clock, on motorcycles, hit a street sign, intersection. Lady walks out, a little baby, begging for money. And I'm in a hurry because the light's about to turn green. I got 1,000 motorcycles behind me getting ready to honk their horns if I don't move fast enough. And I'm digging my pocket. I pull out, 50,000 rupiah, right? Which is really about $4 US,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And I just, here you go, take that, right? Now, giving her $4 was like giving her $40
yeah,
here in Indonesia, right? And so my wife saw this transaction. She goes, damn, that's give her a lot of money. Normally we give them like 2,000 or 5,000. That's pretty standard, right? I can just give her 50,000. Wow. She didn't say nothing, but she remembered I did that, right? And she purposely didn't say anything, but she remembered from my coaching training, when I talk about this, that, it's going to come back.
mm,
It's going to come back to him as long as we're not talking about it and focusing on it at all. It'll come back. So a couple months later, we're back in the States. We're getting ready to go back to Bali in less than a week, maybe in a couple days, in fact. And I get this message on Facebook. I have a fellow that I don't know him personally, didn't know him personally, but I've been following him. He's been following me, him and his wife, on Facebook. Says, hey man, I work for this company, large construction company, global construction company, blah, 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 blah. He goes, I'm one of their executives. The company's having some issues at one of its locations with they're doing construction, major project, they're falling behind. And basically at the corporate level, they said, hey, find us a motivational guy to come in and basically charge up these guys, right, at this particular location. So I was asked to come in and be a guest speaker and basically speak to the line supervisors, if you will, to
hmm
motivate them to increase production or work hard or whatever, get more organized or more focused, right? And that was my mission. So my wife's listening to the conversation on the phone. It's going pretty fast. I go, when do you want this done? As soon as you can do it, like in the next few days. Like, holy shit. I said, okay, all right, yeah, okay. And he goes, how much would it cost? Like I wasn't ready for all that yet. And I'm like, well, I thought I could him and haw about it and blow the chance or just go ahead and jump on it now. So I started calculating stuff. And I said, how long you want the speech for? Hour, 2 hours? He goes, whatever you want. Well, let's do 2 hours. That's probably, but I'm long-winded, right? I said 2 hours. I think that's fair. Yeah, 2 hours is good. What do you want? And I thought, well, damn, I used to get like $10,000 an hour for speeches, 10, 20,000 dollars plus travel,
yeah,
hotel, blah, blah, blah. So it came out to like, came out to a lot, right?
yeah,
Over, man, um, for 2 hours.
yeah.
And,
Not bad.
and they said, and the next question was, is that it? I go, "Fuck, shit. What do you mean? Is that it? Well, I didn't know what else to say,
Yeah.
Well, well, yeah, okay, yeah, that's it, of course, well, yeah, of course, And he goes, well, some of your contemporaries out there, they've charged considerably more. Like how much more? Oh, 4 or 5 times as much. I go, what? And he gave me the names. I'm not gonna say their names. I'm not gonna say their names. They're pretty popular, but they're only popular because they got big mouths and shit, but they haven't really done that much. But anyways, so I remember so I go, well, let me ask you something. I go, so why are you calling me then? He goes, well, think about it. He goes, we're not calling them anymore because we're calling you because, and I thought about it. When he told me who they were, I'll just say this. Maybe I shouldn't say this. I'll say it. These guys were officers, okay?
Mm.
Certain kind of officers,
Yeah.
military officers. And I said, so, okay. I said, so you brought in officers to basically motivate your line supervisors to crack the whip and make their guys work, right? Make more money. Because yeah, I said, in the military, everybody thinks the officers are leaders. Actually, they're not. They're more like executive managers. At the end of the day, who's pushing the troops, who's making shit happen? The non-commissioned officers. Those are your real leadership. We know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
NCO Corps is the backbone of the military, right? That's common knowledge. It's put out in all the trainings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I said, you finally got it right. And he goes, what do you mean? He goes, well, yeah, you brought an officer to train for freaking enlisted guys, basically, to be hoorah.
Ain't working.
I said,
Yeah.
didn't work. I said, but now you got it right. You brought in an NCO, a
Yeah.
leader,
Yeah.
to motivate and guide and mentor young enlisted in leadership, NCOs. Because that's what your line supervisors are. They're not managers, they're leaders.
Mm.
They got to motivate men to build shit and make
Yeah.
things right. And he goes, wow, that's pretty profound. I never thought about it. I go there. I go, that in itself is worth $20,000, all right? and and so anyways, but after I got off the phone, my wife was like, she goes, you know what? She goes, I knew this was gonna happen. And she told me the story about the night on the motorcycle, which I
Mm.
totally forgot about. I didn't remember it. She goes, yeah, you gave the girl 50,000 rupee. I didn't say nothing because I knew. And here she goes, here it is. She
Mm.
goes, that $4 just turned into $24,000.
Yeah.
It's like that for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Holy, wow, she's right. And so, again, the law of reciprocity, I wouldn't expect nothing back for $4. Never do. I
Yeah.
never do. In fact, I never, when I give money away, I don't expect nothing back. I don't ever think to myself, well, if I give them something, maybe something good will happen to me. I just don't do it
Yeah.
because I do it because I'm just trying to do it out of the goodness of my heart because
Yeah.
they could use the money, right? Not
Yeah.
because I want something back out of them.
Yeah.
And I find I do that a lot with bigger projects and things. I do a lot of favors for people, you know, and I give him whatever, throw him a bone. Hey man, talk to this guy. He could probably hook you up, and he hooks him up really big and good. He's like, I don't want nothing for it. I got a guy right now that thinks I owe him everything because he's hooking me up with friends, but nobody's ever made any money for me, right? But he's linked up with all my friends that are actually making him money, right? And he's not paying me any money, but if I were to make money from any of his contacts, he would expect to get paid, right?
Mm.
It's shit at the end of the day. I don't do that to people. I don't expect you. If I introduce my friend to you, for example, and you two work something out and you both get rich, I don't stand there with my hands out going, give me something. No, it
No.
doesn't work that way. But
No.
there are people out there that do that, right? And I don't do that. I'm like, hey man, pat you both on the back. Said, dude, good job, guys.
Yeah.
You know,
Fuck yeah. Go get
uh,
it.
that's
Yeah,
what
man.
real friends,
Yeah. Yeah, man.
real
It's
friends.
it's more times than not that if it's a one off, it's a nice story. It's happened so many times with this pod where it comes around to this podcast to when people
Yeah.
are like, how do you get these guests? And I'm like, hard work, but I'm like, man, there's a lot of I'm like, karma's real, man. It's no more or less different than throwing a ball at the wall and it bounces. I'm like more times than not, fucking so many guests have just fallen into my lap that I mean, the guests I get before they go on Rogan, people are like, how the fuck did you get them? And I'm like, I must have tipped somebody. Like I don't know what to tell you, right?
Uh, it's called the law of attraction, and it's
Yeah.
real. It's literally real. It's frequency. My wife and I have done something that's pretty interesting. And it opened up a lot of doors. I was kind of in this weird place about 3 months ago. When I say weird place, it's like I just don't seem to be making the progress I normally make.
Yeah.
So what am I doing wrong? I'm missing something. I'm missing something. I'm missing something. And anyways, long story short, I remember what it was. Like, you know what? I used to write down what I wanted, my affirmations,
Hmm.
wrote it down in the here and now. Like, I am a multimillionaire. I
Yeah.
am this, that, right? And it's never I'm going to be. It's always I am.
Yeah.
There's a reason for it. Why you say I am. Because what you're not doing is trying to you're consciously you're not trying to accept it. You're trying to get the subconscious to believe it. The
Yeah.
subconscious does the difference between reality and imagination. The consciousness, pretty much the left side of the brain, is the filter and analytical side of the brain. You're not trying to convince that, right?
No.
And so so I started doing is, okay, I'm gonna write this down every day. I wrote down every day, I mean, and I didn't say millionaire, I said multimillionaire. Reason why millionaire is limiting, right? It's a limited thought. If you say multimillionaire, I could be what, 999 million, right? And so,
You'd be a billionaire.
right, it could be that, right? So I started writing that down every day, and I write them down in a certain sequence every day, certain numbers. And then I thought about something even more important. I said, there's a story out there. It's in the Guinness Book of World Records. But it talks about, for example, Belgian draft horses. A Belgian draft horse can pull about 8,000 pounds, 8,000 pound cart, about 4,000 pounds dead weight. So you figure, okay, if I yoke two of them together, then maybe I can they'll pull 16,000 pounds, right? Double the weight. And actually, the reality is, if two horses can pull, say, 4,000 pounds, you think, oh, 8,000 pounds. No, they can actually pull 16,000 pounds. Like, whoa, right? And there's different records for this. I think one of the world records is 72,000 pounds, but two horses, they raised them together, pastured them together, everything together for 3 months, yoked them together. Together, these horses pulled 52,000 pounds. All right. And it's like, damn, I mean, it broke all kinds of records. I think the real record, 72,000 pounds, two horses. And so what's the reason for that? Well, you could argue because they're competing, but I don't think it's because of competing. It's actually because they're literally on the same frequency.
Yeah.
Okay. And so because what happens is, although they're two elements, they become one. Um, if you think about, for example, schools of fish like
Hmm.
sardines and or flocks of birds flying, they're all flying together. How are they able to do that without colliding into each other? And how are they able to do it so precisely and move so quickly? It's because together they have literally collectively, they've created one unified body via electric fields around them, right? Because
Hmm.
we all emit these energies become one, let's call it intranet system, right? So it all functions at one time. Birds do it, even animals do it, even people do it. My wife and I are always on the same program. In fact, earlier this evening, I stuck myself in the belly with a insulin pin, right? And she actually felt it. She looked over, she goes, "Did you stick some of your stuff?" Yeah. She goes, "I just felt it." She felt it. Dude, I got some crazy stories on that one. Really bizarro stuff, which tells me we're always on the same frequency. Anyways, going back to my story, so with that knowledge about the horse, I said, you know what? I'm going to have my wife do it every day. Every day we're going to hold hands and together we're going to say, we are multimillionaires. We are multimillionaires. And we're going to look at each other's eyes when we do it. And we started doing that. We started writing it down. And almost immediately, the gates started to open up. It was what I call a gateway experience. I was getting project after project after project after project, one right after. I was making tons of money, just all of it just coming in like, oh, I don't know if I can manage all this stuff anymore, right? It was just a gateway experience. Um, and I found that every time we do that, and by the way, me and my wife holding hands, what were we doing? We were literally consolidating our energy,
Hmm.
right? It's more power, Scotty. And so now together, collectively, we're saying this and we create, again, it goes back to the law of reciprocity. We're putting that energy out at 7.83 hertz, right? And it's coming back to us
Hmm.
at 7.83 hertz. By the way, what does that mean? Pituitary, not your pituitary gland, but the pineal gland literally emits energy like a Bluetooth frequency. Okay. So it sends signals and it receives signals. There's a lot that goes into the science of this whole thing, but going back to our discussion about, karma and reciprocity. Yeah, you can literally will things into your life if you believe it and you use the right affirmations. Like you said, throwing a tennis ball, you throw it, hit the wall, it comes right back.
Hmm.
Wow. You know, um, it's kind of the story of my life, man,
No,
in a lot of ways.
no, it's all shit. I completely. It's all shit I believe. It's all things I use when I meditations and yeah, telling yourself like it's gonna fucking. I mean, I remember. I mean, it's summer 2020, fucking, living above my parents' garage, working at a liquor store in the middle of a goddamn bioweapon pandemic, and I'm doing the podcast on, trying not to get banned from YouTube, and but I would still just tell myself every day, I'll be like, this time next year, the podcast is going to be paying for my apartment. Mind you, at the time,
Yeah.
making 0 cents, literally zero, not monetized.
I think we talked about it before then. You and I have talked about the same concept before that happened. Remember?
Oh yeah,
You
yeah,
remember?
no, yeah, because well, you and I first talked in March 2020, and
Yeah.
so and 6 7 months later, I meet my investor, and when we start and the show starts working, and like every year when it starts to stagnate, I realize I'm like, oh, I've hit the goal I wanted to hit. That's why I'm stagnating, and I'll be like, well, what's next? And I remember, I mean, I've talked about this story. I was literally, I was in a hotel room about to go to my little brother's bachelor party last summer, or yeah, summer 2022. And I was just like, what's the next step of my, I mean, you remember the old studio, that fucking like cubby in that old apartment in Maryland. And I was like, what would be the next thing? And I was like, I mean, I don't know, like it's a cool apartment in like downtown somewhere, like looking out over. And I remember like meditating and like seeing like the image. I mean, I'm on the fifth floor now in downtown, and I just imagined this like whole room, and I was like, yeah, that's what I fucking want. And then bing bang boom, and I'm here, and you're like, what the fuck? And so like my next thing was like, when I feel like I'm stagnating, I'm like, well, what do I want next? I'm like, I need sponsors. And I'm like, no, I fucking have sponsors. I'm like, I have fucking sponsors. Like, keep working at it, keep working at it. And you never really see it happen. One day you just kind of wake up and you realize you're there. You go, oh shit. It's like when you're driving on the highway and you kind of like black out for like an hour, and then you're like, oh, we're here. It's one of those things. Like now I'm looking around and I'm like, wait, what the fuck? I have sponsors now, and I got more on the way. And it is like there is something to be said for like they like it. I think it all comes back to the whole like pay it forward, doing the good deeds. There is something. There is something to where like they want you to be negative and self-hating. They
Yeah.
don't want you to They don't want you to still try to find the optimism. They want you to spiral downhill. They don't, and it's right. It just like it hurts to go to the gym, but then you feel better after. That's why I always do like the devil's advocate thing, or try to be optimistic. Or I said the line about the 1500s thing is I'm always like, what's the difficult thing? The difficult thing is to try to be positive. Doesn't mean shit's not fucked, but like if you can just see the angle, and more often than not, it, I think Terrence McKenna said it. He goes, the real magic to the universe is jumping into the abyss and then realizing it's a feather down mattress. And he goes, the universe loves courage. It wants to see you be scared out of your fucking mind, but still be like, what, how can it be good?
Yeah.
And, it's that it doesn't make the news. You never see this shit, but there is something to it, to where, I mean, I never in a million years thought I'd be where I am now. But it works if you just don't listen to people that are trying to get you to just accept that it's all fucked and it's all evil and there's no such thing as goodness. Like, no, man. I mean, we started this conversation with we're in World War III, and we are, right? And then it trails off to, you tell me that beautiful story about your dad, and it's like now we've completely switched. I mean, you can feel the vibe of the conversation has switched from fucking bioterrorism and World War III to like we're talking about how like there's still beauty in the world, right? And it's like you can feel it get lighter, right? Doesn't mean there's not still bad stuff in the world. Doesn't mean
Right.
go be some fucking hippie, bro. No, no, no. You stay strapped, right? Make sure you have one in the chamber. But if you try, you can, but no, you can't prove it. You can't put it on paper, so people like to write it off. But man, it's real as fuck. You know it. I know it. People that work towards it know it. People write it off. Oh, you're meditating or you're manifesting or you're seeing your. I'm like, hey, man, enjoy your fucking miserable existence. That is your punishment, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Those are the people that never get ahead, never live a life fulfilled. They have limited thoughts. They bought into the lie, the dogma, in a lot of ways, thank you to Rockefeller. But
Yeah.
uh, at the end of the day, they're just useful idiots. Um, it's the real pioneers, the Magellans of the world, the real adventurers are the ones that think outside the box, the
Mm,
ones that manifest because they're positive in a way they think, how they think, not what they think, how they think. That's the difference. Everybody else has been trained to what to think, right? Teachers tell you what to think, news tells you what to think, parents tell you what to think. They give you a construct to work within because that's all they know. But how to think, that's a whole different concept.
mm,
How do you think? Big difference from what you think, and
mm,
how to think is a process. It has nothing to do with your intellect. It has everything to do with perspective. It has everything to do with desire. In fact, I'll share a little secret to success. There's actually three tenets to success. The first one is your purpose. What is your purpose? What is your goal? What is your mission in life? What does you want to do? Okay, purpose. Second one you got to have is a plan, some kind of plan. It can be a shitty plan, something to start with, but
hmm
you got to have a plan, a methodology to achieve this purpose, right? Otherwise, nothing happens. And then the third thing you have to have, and if you don't have that, nothing else happens. The first two don't even matter. The third one is passion,
mm,
right? Desire to see it to its end. And this is where everybody fails. They don't have that desire. They don't have that passion. They don't have that zest, that determination to manifest that dream, to make it real. And that's where everybody bones it, right? And this is where everybody gets frustrated because it's too hard. I keep failing. It doesn't. That's why you keep failing, because you're a pussy, right? Look at. There's plenty of people out there that are great success stories. Elon Musk, for example, how many times did he get told, get the hell out of here with your bullshit? PayPal, KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Colonel Sanders, get out of here with your fried chicken shit. We don't,
yeah.
600, 700 times rejected. At the age of 65, starts a universal franchise, which, by the way, KFC is everywhere here in Bali. Okay. So, these are the guys that didn't take no for an answer. They remember their purpose, their mission, stuck to the mission, kept adjusting their plan, right? The first plan, of course, didn't work. They keep building on the plan, they keep learning lessons, make adjustments to the plan. And the third one is they just don't give up, right? There's a passion. I'm going to see it to its end no matter what. You have to have those three things. And when passion wanes, because it does wane,
hmm
because sometimes you get freaking run down, like, fuck, man, how many times I got to keep doing this? Nothing's happening. There's 100 times I've gone back and revisited this thing and it ain't happening. I don't know, man. You know what gets you over the finish line? We're going to keep you going when the passion wanes. This is what the military is great at. This is why soldiers do really well, even in the corporate world. Discipline.
hmm
Discipline, that fucking thing to get you out of the bed in the morning when you don't feel like and get you into the gym,
Hit it every
right?
day. Yep.
Discipline is what makes it at the end of the day happen. If you ain't got discipline, that's your backup. When you just don't have the passion,
When the passion wanes, it's yeah,
discipline, right?
yeah,
Is discipline.
drilling, reflex.
Exactly. Is discipline. Look, I mean, there's been plenty of times I've gone on ops missions. I'm like, yeah, I'm motivated. Let's go get this thing. Let's go, good. After a while, ooh, man, I'm tired. Shit, how much further we gotta go? Oh man, you want to sit on your ass, and it's like, no, you know what? Get on your feet, soldier, and move out. You got a job to do. You got purpose. Follow the plan and move out. So, that's my little advice
Yeah,
there.
it's the passion's great. But passion doesn't. Anyone can have passion. You get excited, the podcast starts working, you get some views. Anyone can be psyched for that. I told you I didn't fucking sleep last night. I didn't sleep for, I think it's because me and my older brother drank for 9 straight nights over Christmas. My brain's all fucked up, but like I didn't sleep for a single, but 8 a.m. Get up. What do we do at 8 a.m.? I put on my shoes, my clothes. I walk down to the gym. Start doing my push-ups and I come back up here. I didn't even want to fucking do that, but I'm just an autopilot, right? Come back and I got Dale. I'm like, we gotta talk to Dale. And I'm like, we're ready. We're doing it now. I'm tired. I'm tired as fuck. Let's roll. Let's do the thing. Do the fucking plugs. Go. And that's what gets
That's
you through it, right? Yeah.
right. It's
Um.
fun.
Fuck yeah. Yo, Dale. Let's wrap this bitch up.
All right,
Um.
brother.
Uh. Honestly, man, that I think that legitimately might have been my favorite conversation with you. That
Is
was
that right?
that was a good one, man. That was we started with it's all fucked bioweapons and we ended on a positive note. And this is the one thing I always try to take away from it all. Light implies dark, up implies down, cold cold implies hot. When you see all the evil in the world and you see all the demonic forces, that implies good. And so as fucked up as shit is, to me that just convinces me more and more that there's a God. When you see fucking kid diddlers on Epstein's Island and you go, God damn, evil is real. Evil is these people fuck children. If evil's real, there's gotta be good. There's demonic. If there's evil, then there's gotta be good. And that's
Yeah.
that's that's what I try to take away from it. I there is a God, there is good, and there is karma. And it might sound like this isn't a positive ending, but those motherfuckers will burn in hell. And that much I'm sure
We're,
of. They
we're
will.
either burn on earth or burn in hell, but they're gonna get burned down.
Either way,
All
gas is coming, baby. Tell
right, bro.
Comstock. Let's wrap this bitch up. Guys, go in the description. Please go grab his book, American Badass. Please go follow his Instagram. Please go do all that shit. You can go get his coaching. All the links are in the description. Dale, love you, brother, as always. And that was that I think that's my favorite conversation I've had with you. That was fucking sick. So, right?
All
And
right.
then the day I want to just go back to sleep and just cancel on everyone, right? You find that little gem. There's the discipline, right? You get the fucking thing. Boom. Dale, till
Yeah.
next time, brother. Thank you so much.
Okay, all right. Bye bye.